Well, I'm surprised we had to wait this long for a new King Gizzard album, although in their defense, they have released two live albums this year, Chunky Shrapnel and then the one that they released earlier this month. I'm talking about their studio release. So yeah, let's talk about one of my favorite contemporary rock bands. KG by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. So for those of you that don't know, King Gizzard is an Australian psych rock band, and even putting that moniker on them is a little misleading because they're really all over the place. Like each album that they put out is completely different from anything else that they've put out previous to that. Or, I mean, in certain respects, right? Like in certain respects. Like the last one that we had, Infest the Rat's Nest, was essentially a thrash metal band. And the one that they put out before that, which was Fishing for Fishies, was this psychedelic rock album. Both of these albums were released last year. So they have this tendency to release a lot of albums all in one go. And that was definitely evident in 2017 when they released 5 albums. And actually that was from that catch where my favorite album from them, Polygon Wonderland, resides. And that is just a straight up psychedelic, almost progressive rock outfit, which is part of the reason why I love it. But then we get some like really strange like microtonal experimentations, which was the first album of that whole 2017 bonanza, which was Flying Microtonal Banana. And the reason why I bring that one specifically up is kind of what we get within KG. And honestly, this is the first time that I'm listening to a King Gizzard album, and the one word that kind of keeps coming to mind is not necessarily redundant, but retread, because it feels very similar to a lot of material that we found before. Now, some of that is that they're still experimenting and still using a lot of the microtones. So they're tuning their guitars down so that they're able to get those tones that as a Western predominant musical landscape we're not used to. In that respect, there's a little bit of a retread, but there's a lot of things on here that I'm feeling right off of the Flying Microtonal Banana. And amongst that, we also have a little bit of retreads on kind of the Nonagon Infinity, the I'm in Your Mind fuzz, and Murder of the Universe kind of a feel. These 3 albums that kind of interlock and intersect. So I'm getting that kind of a flavor. And that is the prominent flavor that we have on here. And very rarely do we feel kind of outside of that box. And one of the biggest limitations that I had with the album previous to this, which was Infest the Rat's Nest, was that there was no real going off base. Like they were very close to the norm and the median of the album. And I feel kind of the same about KG. Now, the one thing that I do enjoy about this album is that a number of these a number of these tracks bleed right into one another, so it does provide, as King Giz likes to do, a cohesive whole, a flow and blend of music that feels singular. And I also enjoy that this one on KG is a little bit more acoustic. We're not as inundated with electrical instruments as we were on the Microtonal Banana. This one does feel a lot more homegrown. It feels a lot more almost folky in a sense. And I was getting excited about that with some of the singles that we were getting for this track. Honey being the first one, I really loved how groovin' and psychedelic it felt. I love the acoustic nature and how personal it felt. The other one was Straws in the Wind, which, again, it feels very homegrown. It feels like more of that garage band feel to it. It's not only within the instrumentation, but also a little bit within the mixing as well. And I mean, we did feel that with Infest the Rat's Nest. And there is still quite a bit of groove that's on here. There's still a lot of energy and get up and go. The 2 tracks that I feel this is kind of the 1-2 punch of Some of Us and Ontology. I love Ontology's real drive that we have on there. It's very meaty. It's very driven. I know I already used that moniker, but it has kind of that flair of the microtonals and very Eastern flair to it, while still being this very accessible and driven track. And this actually bleeds into probably my favorite track off this album, which is Intrasport. Part of the reason why I love it is it's so different. And that was one of the things that I loved about King Gizzard, is just how different all the songs feel. I mean, that's one of the biggest weaknesses of this album, is that a lot of these songs don't feel all that different, and they don't feel like they have their own personality. Intrasport definitely has that. Like, it's kind of harkening back to what I loved from Fishing for Fishies, with like the Psy Boogie and all that dance kind of aspects to it. It's a lot more electronical. It's probably the most electric track off of the album, and I love how grooving, I love how boogieing it feels. Like, it feels like a track that I want to get up and dance to. And man, that beat is just so infectious, and I love everything about it. Like, I love the rhythm section of that, and how they use the rhythm section to bring about the melodies of this. Like, I don't know if it's like a synth or something that they're using to create a lot of those sounds, but it's just outstanding, and I can't help but love that track. And I do love how that rhythm section does bleed through into Odd Life, the 8th track on here. And it does feel like, I know one of the drummers actually left the band and was replaced by another individual, and I can feel that new life on here. And then we come to the last track of The Hungry Wolf of Fate, and I like how this is a little bit of a conglomeration of the darker, raw aspects that we had from not only Infest the Rat's Nest, but also on tracks from, say, Murder of the Universe, where it's very dark, it's very gritty, it's very chunky, and that's the whole, like, chunky shrapnel. And it's a really interesting way of tying the album together and rounding this all off. So, yeah, in the end, KG from King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard was fine. It was a little bit on the disappointing side for me, and I think part of that is just I need a little bit more time with it. I need to get into it a little bit more. I mean, I was disappointed with Infest the Rat's Nest because I'm not a big thrash metal guy, but I've grown to appreciate it, and I have a feeling I'm probably going to be doing the same thing here. The biggest weakness of this album is the repetition and the treading of the ground that we've already seen before. Now, it's not completely a full-on retread, because I do feel like they're coming back to a style that they want to play a little bit more in and see what else they can unearth. The only problem with that is you do run the risk of becoming repetitive. And I feel like they've kind of touched a little bit on that sense in this album here. Now, it's in no way, shape, or form a bad album. It's still a fantastic and outstanding album, but I don't know. I've come to have a higher expectation for this group, and by giving me more of the same, I just feel like I wanted more of difference. So yeah, that's where I'm at for KG. This was one that I would for sure download. It's still a fantastic album, and one that I would suggest checking out if you're a fan of King Giz, or if you're a fan of this style of trippy, experimental, psychedelics, rock. Go and check it out, because it's still a really good time. And that's all I've got. All right, yeah. So that's about it for KG by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. What did you guys think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, let me know by commenting down below. And thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.